screen. Silence from everybody. Okay, so we're going to talk about what Parish Online can do and how it does it. Just so that you're all aware, I tend to record these sessions so that when people find that we're going through them very quickly, they have a chance to go back and listen to what was said again, because at the end of the session, I send you both a copy of the video and a copy of the presentation, so that you've got everything to refer back to should you wish. And if you have any issues, please just shout. What we're going to cover today are the licenses that make the system more detailed than it comes initially. Both of you have got up and running systems, so that may not be necessary. Then we go through and just do a quick demonstration of what it can do. We talk about maps and layers. I show you what the impact is of doing those. And then we get you to create a layer and add some features to that layer. And then we just go through the last little bits before we finish off with the Q&A session. So because you both work for councils, you are all entitled to take part in the public sector geospatial agreement, which basically gives you the most detailed version of the Ordnance Survey's digital map of the UK. And the difference that you see is that the picture on the right now shows the open source data. And if you go to the high definition, you get that sort of thing. And by the same token, aerial photography take you from this to this, where you get all the shadows and so forth. Very helpful for identifying where streetlights are, for instance. It's good to have the extra detail. So I just show you here how to get the PSGA number. It's not really essential to either of you, I don't think, but we'll just go through the principle of how you get things. So clicking on the cogwheel brings you to a little download mini menu like this. And if you click on help and support, it takes you to it says the XMAP support center, but that's just the big brother to Parish Online. And you have a section called getting a PSGA number. So really, this is just showing you the principle of how the help system works. Right, what Parish Online is and how it can do it. Basically, it's a digital map of the UK, which you access up in the cloud. So all you need to get to it is a browser. You don't need to have any server. You don't need to worry about storing data. It's all done for you in a very secure manner. And digital mapping, basically everything is based upon the Ordnance Survey's high definition digital map of the UK, and we'll see that in effect in just a second. So not only is it easy to create information, but it's also easy to find out how to use it. So the knowledge base we'll touch on later on, but it's a great way of finding out how to do individual things. There's a user group to support you, there's email, and then there's the training that I do, and there is the user group is a very active way. And again, we'll talk about that, of how you get help from them. So basically, it's a very friendly organization, and the people who take part have all been magnificent, I find. So why should we use maps in the first place? Well, I'm going to introduce you to what I call location-based data. So everything has a place, and it's very simple to just be able to click on any of these items and up comes the data for that item on the left-hand side. And that's the principle of what we're going to be doing with Parish Online. So councils use it for all of these sorts of things. The most common reason for councils to start using Parish Online is because they want to draw up a neighbourhood plan. And the easiest way of getting neighbourhood plans into effect is to use maps. Hence, they buy Parish Online. But once they discover what it can do, then it starts becoming more of an everyday item for all of these sorts of activities. And there are many more that people use them for. The beauty of it is that it's able to be accessed by everybody 24/7. So you're no longer dependent upon the filing cabinet full of individual papers that have to be copied every time you want to use one. And again, it takes away the issue of the filing clerk going off on holiday and taking the key to the locked cabinet with her. So The beauty of this is that everybody who works in the council can have a look at the same data. You're all operating off the same page, so to speak, or even literally. And you can create your own maps. So there's a whole ton of stuff that comes from third parties to give you the bases on which to draw conclusions and so forth. But then for your individual area that you're working in, you can come up with your own maps. And you can publish the information very simply, either as a piece of paper, because you get this PDF file to print out, or you can just send the PDF file to people, or there are lots of other ways of doing it as well. And the data comes from all over the place. So there's other parts of the government, your local district council, your local planning authority, your local county council, your unitary, if you're part of a unitary. And then all of these third-party agencies, some of which are part of the government and some of which are very definitely not. So places like the National Allotment Society have nothing to do with the government, but obviously DEFRA and the Environment Agency do. All great sources of information which all come into Parish Online automatically. You don't need to do anything about any of them. The data is just there and it's kept up to date on a regular basis. Case studies are fabulously useful ways of seeing what other people have done and maybe giving you ideas of what you can do. So here are people who have done block plans for planning applications, and they need to get addresses out of the system, and we'll go through that for you. Here's the sort of thing that people are using maps for. So this is just an untouched map of a particular area, but then you can say, let's show you the areas where you're not going to be allowed to develop anything. We're keeping that as green spaces. However, there are more green spaces desired, and this is where we're going to be working. Then we can have some industrial areas that we're going to develop. And finally, people get very worried about their visibility, their skylines, their access to sunshine and so forth. So you can demonstrate on a map what is important to people, what their range of views are. Chelsea is a classic. They have, as you can see in the top right corner, hundreds literally of benches, seats, pathways, walls, everything that they have to keep up to date and in good equipment. Sorry, good quality to make sure that everybody that comes to visit is safe. And you can see that they are plotting every single one of their chairs and benches and everything else like here, and clicking on any one of these, excuse me, will bring up an associated data record. They make the point that you can add a photograph to every picture showing sort of before you maintained it, after you maintained it, an inspection report. Sorry, whatever it is that helps the council get its job done, and certainly helps protect it in the case of any claims from insurance companies against you, or indeed helping you in making a claim to your insurance company. Other people use this as a way of showing how they want to get rid of unsightly signs or too much signage clutter. They can take pictures and sort of demonstrate them in their presentations to the local council. Winter preparedness. So you can sort of find out where the gritting routes are and show them. You can plot the grit bin locations and see if they're in the right spot, and you can tell the county council where you've put one, so they can make sure they come along and fill it full of salt and grit. And Hoke is obviously having a single point of storing all the data about their town, which is what I think is possibly the greatest usefulness of Parish Online, somewhere where everybody knows where to go. People who are making planning applications or receiving planning applications and need to make decisions about them can bring in all sorts of factors to consider. So are they in a floodplain? Are they in a site of special scientific interest? Something like that. Things that are not immediately obvious on a regular map, but become blindingly obvious once you introduce them on the digital map. So it's a great way of publishing information. So here's Cox Green, who are publishing their planning applications on their village website. which means everybody can stay up to date. The beauty of a public map, which is what this is called, is that it stays up to date automatically with whatever changes are made within Parish Online. So if you change an application from awaiting decision to approved, then it will automatically update on the public map and the villagers will be able to see that it has been approved. Now, the Story is using their maps here to improve their tourist information leaflet. Just another example of using the maps to enhance other parts of the village. And you can see the two of them there. And then finally, a summary of the case studies, which I think is particularly useful. What we're looking at is the Parish Online website, and they have a tab on their website called Case Studies. And when you look on that, you get this. And basically, it's a whole screen full of things that councils around the country have done with Parish Online. And the most useful part of it, I think, is that they give you the step-by-step moves they took in order to achieve this. So if you're saying, I really want to know how to add our allotments into Parish Online, then you can look it up on the case study here, and you'll be able to see what was done in order to achieve that. And maybe you just copy the same steps for your local place, or at least you've got a starting point to show you how big a task is involved. So that's what you can do with Parish Online. Let's see how we did it. Now, very few people that I show this slide to remember the days of overhead projectors, but basically you had a bright light showing up through from here, and you would place a translucent acetate on to depict on the big screen what you were doing. But then to enhance that, you'd either take your felt tip pen and draw on the acetate, or you put another one on the top and add a fresh layer of data, and the system was transparent so you could see through all of them. And basically the geographical information system, which is what Parish Online is, and by the way, it uses exactly the same what's the word I'm looking for, pro forma, if you will, as the big systems that they have up at county council or town council level. So the data can flow backwards and forwards very simply. It works entirely digitally, and it helps you in your decision making, and it really is all about layers, which we're going to discuss right now. So on top of the original base digital map that you get from the Ordnance Survey, you can start bringing in other layers. And that's just a simple matter of one mouse click and the layer appears on top of where you're looking at, and it's adjusted for the right area. So if you're looking at a particular part of Salisbury, say, and you want to bring in the land registry will exactly match the part of Salisbury that you're looking at. So if you need to know what the land registry reference number is for a particular spot, here it is. If you're looking to see which spots in your area are not covered by the land registry, then again, this is a wonderful way of seeing it. You can get addresses, you can find the places of all of listed buildings, you can see what the agriculture is locally. You can put all these layers on top of each other for effect, and really get much better answers. And you can, as it says here, turn them on and off as you wish to focus on a particular area. Now, every single piece of information can bring up a data record. So this looks just like a green dot, but as soon as you click on one of the green dots, up will come a record that tells you more about it. And in particular, in the case of Historic England, it gives you a link to the website entry for this particular building, and you learn all about it. So it's very easy to go down rabbit holes in Parish Online, because I find it fascinating. I couldn't believe the number of listed buildings there were in my little village when I first tried this. And as we mentioned earlier, you can create your own layers to do exactly what you want to do. And we will be doing that today. So there are three types of layers. Each one can only consist of one geometry. It's either a point, which is things like a bus stop or a street lamp, or it can be a line, which can be the boundary around a field, or it can be a footpath, or it'll be basically a polygon, which is everything else. So anything that's covering more than a patch of area is a polygon, and then you can have footpaths or dots instead. But you can only have one type on each layer that you're creating. So if you need to cover something that is both polygons and points, then you need two layers, and you just show the two of them simultaneously. It is actually much simpler than it sounds. Some quick ideas for those of you, I hope you're both on PCs. I hope you're both using mice, and whatever you do, please don't use Internet Explorer. Okay, let's get a bit more and just show you what it can do. So when you turn on, what you get is a screen divided into two parts. The left smaller part is just, this changes as we work along, but at the moment it's showing you all the layers of data you can take a look at. The right-hand side, the much larger part, is the Ordnance Survey's digital map of the UK. At the moment, we have no layers at all turned on. So all you're looking at is the raw mapping data. And when you turn on Parish Online, it automatically starts up in your parish. So you don't have to worry about where you are. It starts where you are. However, there's no limitation to where you can go. You've got the entire UK to choose from. So if you want to go and see where your grandmother lives or lived, you can do that. And if you want to plot out her house and mark it in red, you can do that too. Anything that you do can only be seen by you or anyone else that logs in from your particular license. So even though you make changes in Glasgow, for instance, nobody in Glasgow can see what changes you've made. So it's your data, it stays close to you. The only limitation is when you're doing a public map, like we showed earlier, the public maps only work within your parish boundary. They won't work on anyone else's parish, which is probably just as well. So those of you who've used sort of Google Maps or something will be used to the fact that you can zoom in, zoom out, and scroll around left, right, up or down, just as you wish. So I'm just going to show you in the next few slides the range of scaling available, just so you can see how versatile this is. So on the first one, we're giving you the entire United Kingdom, and all you see at this level is the capital cities. But as we scroll in, and you can see that down here in the left corner, there's a little scale indicating how far this distance represents. And that sort of 1.5 covers 200 kilometers. Maybe I should mention it in, I guess it's 3 centimeters, 4 or 5 centimeters represents 200 kilometers. As we zoom in to the sort of the county level, you're now seeing that we're getting 10 kilometers in this 5 centimeter scale. And basically you're seeing most of, in this case, Somerset, all on one map. Zoom in a bit further and you're sort of coming down to the village level. And you'll notice that as we zoom in, the level of detail is increasing. So we're beginning to get the names of individual small streets, as well as the numbers of the big roads. We're beginning to see the major houses, and certainly the village names are all in place. And we're now looking at 500 meters on this scale of 5 centimeters. We can now go down to the house level, and you can see that basically every building is beginning to get either a name or a number on it. Here we've got everything. You can see every single part of every single building, but we still got further to go. And now coming down to the more detailed level, which is really useful when it comes to saying, where are we going to build the new pavilion? What shapes the new pavilion going to be? That sort of thing. And then if you're really worried, you can get down to the sort of centimeter level, where the distance represented here is 200 millimeters. So very tiny. Not often that people have to get down to that level, but I guess if you're sort of redoing a cobblestone street, or you're a brick pathway, for instance, and you can get down to this scale to show the size of the individual bricks or cobblestones. Not that I've ever seen anyone do it, but it's possible. So just going to revise your thinking of layers. On the left-hand side in this column here, we have collections of layers. So each one of these colors represents a whole bunch of layers underneath. So these are collections, if you will. The green ones tend to be the base maps, and so affect what you see here. The beige ones are all the other layers that you can toggle on or off as you wish. You can have as many as you like toggled on at once, but of course it begins to get too complicated if you have too many of them. And the way to toggle layers on or off is just to left click anywhere in this area. So we're going to left click up here on this little tiny arrow, and you can see that the collection has now dropped down to 3 individual layers. And the system has turned on the standard, which is the normal high definition map for our map. And you can see that we've ticked, the tick mark indicates which ones are turned on. And if there's no circle around any of these layers or these collections, sorry, it means that there's no layer turned on within them. So only the layers with the circle around the collections, I beg your pardon, only the collections with circles around have got a layer selected underneath. So what I'm going to do now is move on to the next level. What we've done is ticked on the greens of the grayscale, and we've ticked off the premium stack. And you'll see that this has changed the color and the level of detail in this map. This is particularly useful if you're printing something where you don't want to use color so much, as black and white is less expensive and it's probably a lot faster. And you can actually go down to a white level, which is just really making a simplistic point. So to turn this grayscale off and to go back to standard, we just click once there and click once again up there, and we've gone back. Now I've also turned on the aerial photography, just so that you can see the implication here of showing 2 layers at once. So this is not particularly clear, but you've got the map details showing through the aerial photograph, and it's not particularly clear that this is an aerial photograph. And we can change that by clicking on the right click up here. You determine how much of the underlying map shows through. So at the moment, 60% of what's underneath is showing through, which means that 40% of the photograph is not being seen. So what I'm going to do is change that slider, wind it down to 0. And now we're getting 100% photograph and 0% map. So everything here is what you would get from the photograph. And of course, there's no street names, there's no village names or anything like that. So we can go the other way and say, I want 100% map. And the photograph turns off completely. And every now and again, Parish Online goes completely white. And it just seems to have an issue once in a while with photographs. And I put this slide in here just in case you meet it, you know what to do. And the way around this is just to click on the little refresh link up here, and that takes us back to our normal page. So now we're going to start bringing in some of these beige layers, and there are literally hundreds of these here. So the question is, how do you find one? So they give you a very nice little search button up here. I'm going to click on that and type in the word flood. And you'll see that with the word flood here, we've come down to just 3 collections that have anything to do with flooding. So I'm going to click on one of those, which happens to be the Environmental Agency. And you can see they've got several layers, all to do with flooding. And if I click on zone 3 here, and bear in mind, I'm looking at the Somerset levels here. So we're going to see what happens to the levels when we get a lot of rain. And bingo, most of it disappears underwater. So very useful if you're a planner and you want to know whether someone is going to build a house. Do they realize it's going to spend 3 months of the year underwater? When you've finished, just click on the X and we go back to normal. So just to give you a summary, we've shown you how to select maps from the green boxes or the aerial photographs from the green boxes, and particular layers from the third-party beige colors. What can we do with it? Well, here is a layer turned on. You can see I've got a parish layer checked here. I've also got the parish boundaries turned on, but you can't see that we're not close to the parish boundary here. And remember what I said about location-based data? Just clicking on this anywhere in the red patch will bring up the data record to the left. And basically, we were asked when we got given 50 trees by the tree charter people to track what we did with them. So we put the original planting in this particular area. We took photographs of the area. We put the photographs in as attachments. And if I bring up the plus sign, you'll see here are the attachments of the photographs of. And if I click on any one of these, up pops the photograph, and you can see we had little tiny saplings which were put into a protective polythene tubing and held up with a stake. And if you didn't believe me about the flooding, you can see we have a lot of water lying on these fields. So if you can imagine using this as a historical record, you take a picture every year, you can show how the saplings are growing. Over due time, you notice that sort of 50% of them died, but the other 50% are now so big that they've been replanted elsewhere, and you put those positions on the map. And basically you and the tree charter people can keep track of what happened to the original trees that they gave you. And it's not just on trees, of course, you can do this for anything. So if someone reports a fly tip, you can go out, take a picture of it, and possibly find the before and the after situation of after it's been cleaned up by the county council. Whatever, it's just a way of keeping records much more up to date and much more detailed. So we're going to give you a chance now to play around with layers and features. I'll go through it first to show you what we do, and then you get a chance to actually do some. So a word about where you can create layers. The vast majority, all of these layers underneath are supplied by third parties. They're read-only. You cannot make changes to those layers at all. It's not your data. And if you need changes made to them, you have to get in touch and say, by the way, please, did you note that this line doesn't go through there or whatever. But in the parish layers here, you can create whatever you like, and we'll show you how to do that. Just a mention of the asset register, this second one here, that's a special case, and we will touch on that later. So when you're going to add a new layer, you have to think about why are we adding this layer and what will it contain in the way of data. And that's just a little bit of forethought needed to plan what you're going to do. So this is a sort of a warning of how you're needing to operate. You need to be basically able to switch from your parish online screen where you'll be doing something to the Zoom screen where I'll be showing you what to do. So I hope both of you are familiar with bouncing back and forth between two tabs in your browser or however else you've got it. But let me know if you need help. Now, we're going to create a layer that is going to need a title. So this is basically the sort of the forethinking bit. So the title, we'll just say, I suggest for the moment, so that you can go back and delete it easily later, you put in your name and the word test following it. Then you choose a geometry type. It doesn't matter to me what you choose. I'm going to use a polygon, but you can do whatever you wish. Description, we'll go through it in a moment, but yes, it's a good idea to put whatever you like in there. And then you need always at least one column of data, which will usually be name. Today, for this exercise, we're going to create 3, name, date, and status. And the name will be of the type of column called text. The date will unsurprisingly be a date, and the status will be a text type, but we're going to put in allowed values, which basically means a drop-down list. I'm going to have these 3 values, not yet started, under construction, and finished. So start on the main page. To create a new layer, you go up to create and select the new layer field. And then in here, I'm going to write my name and the test. And then the next one comes up saying, what sort of geometry do you want? This is a drop-down list. So we're going to choose polygon, but it could be point or line. And here in the description, you want to put something that's going to make sense to you or to anybody else in a year or 2 years' time when they come back and they look at your title and they have no idea what the title means. So you need a bit more explanation in the description of why you've created this layer and what it's supposed to be for. And by the way, I should just mention in passing that the title you call the layer on that previous screen is going to fit into this column here. So you don't want it to be too long, which is why you need this description here to really expand upon the short title you gave it. Then we create columns of data, and you get this screen popping up. And to add any new column, you just click on the plus sign here. And it'll pop up and give you a row which is calling name. And we say, fine, that's what we wanted. We wanted a field called name or a column. So now we need another one, which you remember is going to be called date. So it pops up and it calls it name and text by default anyway. And the system won't let you have two columns named the same. So there's a little red line coming up saying it must be unique. And you're just going to change this name and click on it, erase the name and write in date instead. And again, on this drop down list, change it from text to date. And then we're done. Add one more. And we're going to make that one status. Now, there's a slight difference on the status one where we're going to add some allowed values. So we click on this add plus, and it says, what do you want to add? And we're going to add not yet started. Then you click again for a second one called under construction. And we click again for a third one called finished. And then we confirm that's what we wanted. And we can let's confirm there. And you'll see that we've got now our 3 columns, name, date, status. Status has got 3 drop-down items under the allowed values column. So don't worry about if it doesn't come right first time. Editing and changing things in Parish Online is a piece of cake. So nobody has to worry too much about being absolutely letter perfect the first time. Click on finish. When you've clicked on finish, the system brings you back to this main screen, but under parish layers, you'll find is added this new one at the bottom of the list. So they always add them to the bottom of the list, which I think is sometimes counterproductive, but you can change it later. So there's our new test field, test layer, I'm so sorry. Right, once you've got your layer completed, it's a good idea to make one of those 3 columns in the layer a required one, which means that when people are adding a feature, they absolutely have to write something in the required column. And this is very important because it means that you can find it later. If people collect or sort of create records with no data in them, then how on earth do you find them later? Because you can't search on nothing. So what we're going to just show you is how you turn one of those columns, in this case, the name column, into a required column. So we go back to our little cogwheel up here, select the administration dropdown. And we're going to find that our layers are listed in the middle here. We go down to the bottom one, which is the test one. It may need to scroll down to find it, depending on how many other layers you've already got. But we click on it and select it, and then we can look at the details here. And you'll see under the tab column, it opens up by default on general. So you just select columns, and it shows you these 3 columns of data, and you're going to turn this one into a required just by clicking once in that little box. That's all we need to do, and you end up like that. When you're finished, you can now click on the little yellow save icon. So it asks you to double check that you want to save it. We do, so we click on save and we're all done. And then we've done making all of our changes in the layer, so we can now go back to the maps, which is this little globe one here. Okay, so what we've done then is created the new layer called test. We've put in the 3 columns that we wanted. We've configured status to allow 3 drop-down values, and we've configured name to be a required data. And we've come back to the maps page. The next thing is to start putting at least 1 record into that layer so that there's something to see. So to do that, we find our new layer, which I've now moved up here. And we're going to right click, and you can right click anywhere in this brown layer, and up will pop this little menu, and we're going to add a feature. And the left-hand column changes to the feature editor. It comes up with a completely new blank record. And you'll see that name is now required and in red, which means that the system won't let you go on until you've put something in there, which is good. So note that the save button is grayed out. It won't let you save until you've put something in this required column. You can choose whether or not you want to put in the date and the status, because they aren't required. But for good measure, we're going to put them in something in there today. So what we're going to do is to add a building. In our case, we're going to think of a pavilion. So you need somewhere to put it. So I suggest at this point, we just scroll and zoom in to a clear space where I've chosen our recreation ground, and this is where we're going to add the new building, the pavilion. So here's the data. I'm going to fill it in and go to the next slide. And this is what you see. We've called it the new pavilion. We've given it a date, and we've said that it hasn't yet started. Note that the save button is still grayed out. Okay, the system is still waiting for you to do something. And what it wants you to do is actually put your new building on the map. So we go ahead and do that by clicking on the map in one corner of the building. Then if you move your mouse when you've clicked it, a blue trail follows you, and you can change direction by clicking again. So each time you click, you can change direction, move the mouse, and the trail will follow you. And I've just clicked and clicked and clicked and go. And when you get to the top and you've finished, you double click to show that you've saved it or you finished. And then you'll see that the save button becomes alive and you can save your record. And now you can see that we have indeed added a bright new figure. It's in red. And we now want to edit it because it isn't aligned perfectly with the edge of the field. We just sort of stuck it in a rough and ready way. So in order to change that, we need to edit the record. Now the system has assumed that you'd like to add another record, so it's created a new blank one here. In this case, we're not going to do that. So you click on the X and we come back to our main layer. We'll see where it's still in my test. I notice that the pavilion is now bright red, gorgeous. So to bring up the data record so that you can edit it, you click anywhere in the record. Up pops the data on the left. You're going to click on the pencil to show that you want to edit, and then you can make any changes that you wish to need. You can change the data here, or you can change the position of things on the map over here. Notice that you may have several buildings, for all I know, in this layer. So the one you're working on, the one you clicked on, is outlined in blue. So obviously here today, it's the only one, but it may be necessary to outline it in blue because you've got several and you don't know which one you're looking at. So outline in blue, you can now make changes. And we can also move items on the map. And what I've done is you go here and you can just click here and the system will let you pull your line until it lines up with the here. And if this is not a perfect right angle, and it should be, I can just put my mouse there, click it once, there's a blue dot appears and I can just pull it until it's straight. So the way I describe this is do it initially in a quick and dirty way, because it's far simpler to clean up the quick and dirty mess later than to get it absolutely pinpoint correct on the first time when you're creating it. Or I almost guarantee that something will go wrong and you'll swear because everything will disappear and you have to start again. So the beauty is get it quick and dirty first, save it, and then go back and edit it. Right. Here's my example of editing it, just clicking here and produce this blue dot. And I was now able to line up the entire building with the edge of the field, the boundary. And although you can't see it, this is now a beautiful right angle, and that's more of a right angle. It's still arguably this one here is not a perfect right angle, but good enough for government work. We finished, click on save. So once you've clicked on save and go into edit mode, that's when you can start adding attachments. So you can't add attachments to the first time you create a record, but you can once the record exists. You go back into edit mode and it lets you add an attachment. We're going to say, let's put in a photograph here. Because the photograph is being uploaded to the cloud, it may take a second or two, depending on how big your broadband is. But don't worry, it will actually attach it for you. And there we are with our picture uploaded. And this is the opportunity. People say, well, so how do we get rid of this? Well, when you're in this mode, you can click on the item here. It's now highlighted in blue. So it's been selected. You just click on the dustbin and it will disappear. Right, your turn. Well, no, I jumped the gun. I'm sorry. I did mention I'd give you a bit more detail about the asset register, which is the second of the brown layers or collections. And basically, this is slightly different from everything else. In the parish layers, you can do whatever you like. You can add data, you can change it, you can edit it, you can get rid of it, all of the above. In the third-party layers, you can't do anything. It's not your data, you can't touch it. In the asset register, it's a sort of a third way, if you will, that the system provides you with the structure. So all those columns that you've been creating in your own layers have been created for you. And they're based upon what experience has shown to be the sort of information that everybody has to gather for insurance and government's purposes. And it's the system that exists in exactly the same way all the way across Parish Online, all the way across the country. So there's something like 1,800 councils using Parish Online. Their asset register is the same for everybody in terms of structure. So you cannot change the structure, but you can change the data held within the structure. And the only people who can see your data, I mentioned to you before, is yourselves. So don't have to worry about what you've put in there being seen by anybody else. Right. There are a whole bunch of menu headings in Parish Online. You'll notice that we clicked on Create to set up our layer. If you want to find out how the others work, there's a knowledge base that we've given you a link to here. And that's sort of the best way of finding out what to do. I just mention it in passing so that you can have a reference to it in the future. And whoa, what happened to my getting you to do it? Well, that's interesting. I guess I should have done that back up here. So we're going to go back to this bit. All right, so if you guys are ready to have a go yourselves, then you need to turn on Parish Online, you need to log into the system, and you need to be at the menu layer like this so that you can see Create on the top. Are you both up for this?
Yeah, I mean, I've got it, I'm on Zoom on my laptop, but I've got it open on my PC. So is that okay?
Oh, that's even better. That's really
so it's a bit easier.
Okay, yeah. So click on the new layer and you should come up with this screen. And this is where you name it Donna test or Fred test or whoever you wish to be today test. And then click on next. Choose whatever geometry you like. You can see I produced a polygon, but it's up to you what you choose, and type in whatever you wish in the description field. You can just say, this is a load of test rubbish whilst I'm learning the system, something like that. And when you're done, click on next. You're going to need 3 columns. So you're going to click on the add button once to add the first one. It's a name, it's text, and it's all set to go. So you don't need to make any changes. Click on the button again. The second one is also called name. You're not allowed to keep that. So just move your mouse to over the name, remove it, and type in date instead. Then move to the middle type and change it from text to date. And you're done on that column. So you need to add one more. Click on the plus. And we're going to, again, change the word name to status on this third row. And we're going to click on add plus to add our allowed values. So the first one you want to add here is not yet started. When that's in place, click on the add up here. And it gives you the chance to add another one, which you're going to make under construction. And then do it a third time. And you're going to create one called finished. And then when you're finished, you should look something like this. And when you're ready, you click on the confirm button. And you then should be at this stage where it says you're now going to create a layer with these 3 columns of these 3 types and these allowed values. So if you're all set, finish. And it looks like nothing's happened. But if you go back to the parish layers, you'll see that your test layer has now been added in at the bottom. So nothing more needed to be done at this stage because this is where we do the required field. So to do the required field, you're going to go up to the little cogwheel on the top right and click on the administration button. And now you may have a completely blank screen in the center. You're going to wait a few seconds and it will fill up either with lots of layers or with just the one you've created, depending on where things stood with you. But you click on yours just to highlight it and then move up to the top to see the layer details. Click on the columns tab and you're going to put a required tick in just by clicking once in that box. So you end up looking like that. And when you've got that, click on the yellow save button. And it says, you sure you want to save? And you say, yes, please. And then you, for a brief second, and maybe 3 or 4 seconds, you'll get this green box showing up saying it's saved. Sometimes it's a red box saying it wasn't saved. And that will usually be because there's been a sort of momentary blip in your connectivity. Just click on save again and it will, I've never known it not work. So if you're all set, then we can go back to maps by clicking on the middle icon up at this top right-hand corner. So you've done that. Now you're going to find your layer in your list of layers. Yours will still be down at the bottom of the parish layers. You're going to right click in the brown layer and come up with this mini menu, and you're going to add a new feature. And you'll find that you've got a blank record now on the left-hand side. Give your new feature a name, New Pavilion or Donna's Test or whatever it happens to be. By all means, select today's date and check the status. Just choose one of the 3 drop-downs. So that we're going to go. Now you'll notice that your save button still remains grayed out because you need now to add your pavilion or whatever it's going to be to the map, and you need to move yourself around till you can find an area where you can add this. Just a clear space. It can be empty field, it can be anything you like, or you may indeed have a recreation ground where you want to add it. So I've zoomed in on this. I'm going to add in the data here, and then you'll see that we've got it like this, and it's ready for you to put the building on the map. Now you'll notice that as you move your mouse over the map area, it changes from an arrow to a crosshairs, showing you that it's ready to go. Put the crosshairs on what you can imagine to be, let's say, the top left corner of the building. Click once and then drag the mouse, and you'll find that it will create a blue line that follows you along. So when you've got it a nice straight line of a certain length, then click again, change direction, and basically just complete a square until you've got your building drawn. And when you finish, back up with the point where you started, double click to show that you've finished. And hopefully you're going to end up with something like this, which will have a blue outline. And you'll notice that you now are able to click on the save button bottom left. So please go ahead and click on it. And your now building should be outlined, sorry, should be all in red. Again, the system has assumed you're going to add another record, and it's given you a blank record over here. You don't want that, so click on the X at the top to get rid of it, which I've done. So your building is now hopefully outlined in red. In order to make any changes, you click on it, and clicking on it will bring up the data record on the left-hand side. And this is where you can click on the pencil and make any changes you like. Just for practice today, change the shape of the building, get your blue dot on one of the corners and just pull it and make a difference. It doesn't matter whether it's going to be accurate or not. And that really enables you to, just shows you how you can make changes to the shape of the building. And then you also get the chance, if you wanted to change any of the data up here, just so that you can see what editing does. So I'm going to assume that you have pulled and pushed your building into a new shape. When you're happy with it, click on save. You should now be back to a red building with a blue outline, because we want you to add an attachment. Now you can add any document you like to this. If you happen to have a photograph on your computer, add that. But if you've got a spreadsheet, if you've got a Word document, anything you like, picture of your cats, just add it as an attachment so you can get the feel of doing that. And particularly you get a feel for the time it takes to add a photograph. If you're adding a photograph, it may take a second or two. And in due course, it should come up here with the attachment that you've added, with whatever name it was called when you added it. All right, this is so far so good. If you're happy and proud of that, you can quit, or you can click on the dustbin and get rid of it all, depending on what you want. So I now come back to my situation where I mentioned that we've got the asset register. I've come back to the situation of the menu headings. There is a presentation, if you will, that discusses nothing but menu headings, what each menu does, how it does it, and what you do. And that takes up 2 sessions, in fact. So I'm now going to unshare my screen so that I can see you guys and see if you're still there or you've all got lost and unhappy. So this is the point. May you ask any questions, or you say this is a complete waste of time and goodbye. So what have you got? Janine, you're happy? You're far.
Yep, I'm
away.
happy. Yep, I've done it. Sorry, I was just
I know.
deleting it.
We're all very busy. Okay.
No, I was working on it. I was just deleting it.
Any issues, Joe, that you want to raise?
No, I think it's just going to be a bit of trial and error, really, isn't it?
It is. This is one of those systems that it really benefits from you putting a little bit of time in. There's an initial learning curve, but once you're over that learning curve, it becomes very rapid to do. I mean, when I put in my first planning application, it took me about half an hour, and it now takes me 30 seconds to do each new one because one's got the hang of it. And that's just true of everything. And in fact, there was somebody I was teaching the other day, and it turned out that every time I changed the slides that I was showing, she was doing exactly the same thing on her copy of Parish Online at the same speed at which I was speaking. I find that amazing, but it's just encouraging to everyone to see that you can do it that quickly if you happen to be very adept at IT. So that was the first session. There are plenty of others if you want to take advantage of them, or just go ahead and have a go. I will send you an email at the end of the session, which includes this video and the presentation, and it also gives you helpful links to new things to help you out. So, for instance, there's a user group which runs a banter session every Friday afternoon between 3 and 4. And this is a group of what I call the usual suspects, who are parish clerks and councillors who are all extremely familiar with Parish Online, and they just volunteer an hour of their time each week for anybody who's using the system to drop in, say, I have a question on this, can you please resolve the issue? And people will resolve your issue, and you can go off again after 2 minutes and have nothing more to do with them, or you can be so fascinated by what they're doing that you stay and get hooked. It's entirely up to you. I'll also give you links to the knowledge base within Parish Online, which is a very good source of videos showing you how to do things. I think nearly every topic they've got has got a video in it. So there's lots of videos to watch. Some of them are less than a minute long. Some of them are 40 or 50 minutes long, but most of them are really worthwhile. And then you can always come back to me with any questions that you have, please, if you wish. And I now give you a last opportunity to make any points you wish to make, or we can say goodbye. Right, no points.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to see you. Have a great rest of the day.
Yes,
Take
enjoy
care.
the sunshine. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.